Hey guys, I'm a meathead gamer, probably just like you. I understand the importance of playing Stellar Blade, but I also understand the importance of being in a squat rack. So I got the perfect programs for you. Hammerhead, Shogun, the Tenacity Strength Hypertrophy Method, all of these designed to get you bigger, to get you stronger, and to be like one of these characters on Stellar Blade that don't look like one of these ugly ass monsters. So hit me up at Tenacity Strong and get a copy. It will do nothing but help you achieve your physical goals, and you'll get better at your gaming goals. Because when you look good, you play good. All right? Y'all have a good one.
Streamcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Streamcast. I'm joined by an absolute legend, Xalavier. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Iron Beast just came out on Steam. It has 116 Steam user reviews, 100% of which are positive in the first 24 hours, which is wild. And we're looking forward to just continuing to make rad games and talk about this new rad game that we built in a sustainable and reasonable way for games.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to getting into all that and more in this episode. So, for anyone who might not know who you are for whatever reason, would you like to give them a quick description of who you are, what you do, especially for the games industry?
Yeah, quick lowdown. My name is Xalavier Nelson Jr. I am a studio head over at Strange Scaffold, and I also happen to work with a variety of other folks across the industry in a lot of different positions. Started as a game journalist, and since I moved into the dev side of the house about 8 years ago, I've worked on about 100 video games in positions ranging from design to production to narrative and beyond. And in that wide range of experience, working from indie to AAA, original IP, and licensed IP, I realized that there's a lot of assumptions we make about how games have to get made, which make them worse for players and less sustainable for the developers that could ideally continue to grow to make the best next game you didn't know you needed. So, Strange Scaffold has the motto, better, faster, cheaper, and healthier for that exact reason. And I'm just out here making a lot of games and trying to do them in a way that makes sense.
I love that, and you do have quite a lot of games under your belt. We'll get into all of those within this episode, but I do want to take it all the way back because this is a question I like to ask all of my guests, just to get a little bit of insight as to what their favorite games are. Do you remember your first ever game and console?
First ever game was either Shenmue or Jedi Power Battles on the Dreamcast.
Hey, okay, you've gone up another level in my book. Anyone who's a Dreamcast owner, yeah, I mean, I feel like we are part of a small cult of gamers who know how good that console was. But
I can't tell you how in danger my wallet was when limited run games. It's just the Dreamcast logo, just some clothing with the Dreamcast logo, and I was like, dang, do I need to eat today? I don't know if I need to eat today.
I don't really. Come on, we could go a day without eating 3 meals. Come on.
It's a fast. So that's a really important religious right. We can do that.
Exactly. But that swirl, though? That swirl is forever. Love that. And Shenmue as well. That's a very, very deep cut. Again with a cult following. I never played Shenmue, but I've seen playthroughs, and I really like what they tried to do in that game, with the day night, and it feels like a game with 3 dimensions in more ways than one.
It's also a game that in a lot of ways, sorry to interrupt, but it's also a game that, like, imagine experiencing all those things, and you're 5. You don't know about the day-night system. You just know that, like, it's supposed to be a game about martial arts and kicking, and one time you walk onto a playground and you could do some, like, combat. You're like, man, I can't wait to, like, fight a guy, but you don't know how to, like, do that, so you just end up opening drawers and doing gotcha machines and, like, crane by accident. It's because you don't have a memory card, so you're starting from the beginning each time. Like, the dynamic of really leaning into games not having a universal single playthrough, right? The fact that a 5-year-old can be playing Shenmue, and that means you have an utterly different experience and memory with the game, is something I've really tried to retain as I design my experiences, because over time, you can say that to a degree, especially with the internet, certain experiences can be made universal or made to feel universal. The Fortnite events that happen, every quarter, for example. but also there is a magic in considering the particular context that someone will play a game in and how that is adjusted and changed. It's a big reason why clickholding is the way it is because whether you're streaming it or not, the idea of you creating an experience designed for you to have a different emotional and sometimes physical experience with a game based off of where you're at and what you're bringing to the table. I think it's an underrated opportunity that games have that other mediums touch all the time, but that almost to a degree games are scared to do because we're thinking, oh man, what if they don't realize that they have the drop kick feature and that you can unlock that in the progression tree for 3,000 Spider XP? Like, I love Spider-Man, but that it's a good example of like the bigger our games get and the more things they contain, the more terror we feel about everyone not having the same universal experience.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put the differences between games and other mediums, such as TV and film. It's almost like this interactive entertainment platform where you can directly affect how your story is going, as opposed to watching a TV or a TV show or a movie, which is more passive. You know, the story's lined out in most cases, but gaming has the opportunity to reach that that third or fourth dimension in some cases. So yeah, the magic of gaming is something that we've seen evolve multiple times in the last 2-3 decades, and from games like Shenmue to Clickolding, which I'm very intrigued to learn more about. It's a very very cool world. I was going to say unique. It's a unique field medium. There we go.
Yeah, and every time you play a game, your experience with subsequent games changes a lot too, which it has been very cool to see a lot of developers like Inscription by Daniel Mullins and an inspiration for Clickolding is a great example of a game that uses the language and context of games over time to have a different experience with you. And that just straight up wasn't possible, a few decades ago because we weren't making the same kinds of we didn't have as much institutional knowledge the way that, for example, film, you'll be like, oh yes, that's a callback to Rashomon by Kurosawa. We didn't have as many things to pull from, especially in a general context, and now we do. And that's why you have games like I don't remember the exact name of it, but I really want to call out there's this game about exploring an MMO that is, or a series of FPS servers that are dead, that have been abandoned. You're the last player remaining in them, going back and exploring them, and you start it's taking advantage of people's experiences on Gmod and Half-Life servers back in the day, and that evolves into a horror and exploratory narrative experience. We can say those now because there was an era of games that was like that.
Never really thought about it that way, but that's a very valid point. Yeah, now this gaming has been around for so long and has given us so many generations of joy. It has built its own culture and its own unspoken literature. So from your first game, Shenmue, tell me what your 5 favorite games are in any particular order.
I think Resident Evil 7 is nearly a perfect game. I think Evil Within 2 is nearly a perfect game. I was smacked in the face by the glory of, let me make sure I have the correct name of it. I write down all the things that I end up experiencing over time. I do think the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy collectively is just one of the best things that has ever existed. Chrono Trigger is a game I came to late, but it changed the way I think about game design and narrative. And I think maybe last of all, I know that there's something I'm forgetting, but I'm just going to go with Katamari Damacy for the purposes of moving forward this interview. Just in the sense of it has a very specific focus, it has a very specific thing it brings into the world, and it's here and it's gone. And that idea of a game that doesn't have to live forever, a game that can do one thing and be remembered for that thing for eternity is very compelling to me in the every game age, where we're seeing the disastrous effects of games trying to make games that will have all of your playtime. And if they don't get all of your playtime in day one or week one, then you don't get to make things anymore.
Yeah, let's get shutting down, call a failure. Yeah, we are in a special time, a weird time for gaming. The age of the shareholders, where all these business terminologies and infinite growth and all of that are being thrown around, and these people who, I don't know, they don't really have gamers at heart are putting out games, and we're seeing the result of it.
I wouldn't say that. Like, because I know a lot of the people who even like, I know at least a couple developers who worked on Concord, and those are people who loved players. They loved making games. They want to make the best game possible. It is the conditions of the wider industry, right? So there's executives and business who also tend to be gamers, to be frank, but they're making the business decisions of, well, we're not sure that a $3 million game is worth making. Can you pitch us a $30 million game that might make all the money? And even at Strange Scaffold, despite the track record we have, we've shipped 15 games in 5 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we're doing some next level but shipping 15 games in 5 years with the track record we have, we walked into rooms with games like El Paso Elsewhere, which is now getting adapted into a feature film with Lakeith Stanfield and Di Bonaventura Pictures. And that game nearly got canceled because no one would hand it money. We weren't spending enough money on the game. We were like, we want to make a specific game with a specific vision. And they were like, well, this seems like it's going to work for players, but if we don't spend enough money, is it worth making? And that's a mind-boggling thing, especially as a person, as like a working class person. Like, that's my background to hear. But if those are the decisions that are motivating games, and you can see how even if gamers are involved on the dev team, on the executive team, that logic, the business logic, is what ends up strangling projects. El Paso Elsewhere almost didn't happen, depriving tens of thousands of people of an experience that I get DMs about on still a nearly weekly basis about this story about addiction or abuse made me feel seen. It changed my life. That game didn't exist almost because we weren't spending enough money. And I really want, and that's part of why I talk so much about not just our games, but the way in which we make them and how we make them, because it's the how. It is the underpinnings of even the business conditions we create around our games that let us make things like Clickolding. Clickolding was a $25,000 project. It wouldn't have made sense to spend any more, but when you're spending that amount and that amount of time, you can bring other things to life that otherwise wouldn't make sense. You can determine for yourself whether or not Clickolding should exist, but if you create the conditions for a game to exist, that game gets to be created, much like in a factory-based game. You set up the factory to build the types of machines you want. And one thing that I think a lot of both developers and players are running into right now is everyone feels that the machines are not being built to allow the games to be made that people want consistently at the quality that they want them. But because we keep talking about the results of the machine and not the machine itself, the same stuff keeps getting brought. And you have a sporadic level of success, which doubles down on the fear, which means that the machine becomes ever harder to change.
Wow. I mean, that was truly spoken like someone who knows what they're talking about. So
I worked on a lot of games, a lot of conditions. It'll happen.
I mean, yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, congratulations on shipping 15 games in 5 years. That's crazy. That's actually insane. I mean, yeah, shout out to you for doing that and your entire studio. Let's get into you going from the gamer to the insider. Is that a fair term to use? The journalist and then the devs. So how do you go from, picking up a pad, playing the game for hours and then going, I want to make these, or I want to cover these. I want to be the guy breaking the news about these. How does that happen?
Well, I was 12 years old and I found out that games journalists get games for free. And I was like, you get paid to work a job. And then you get a game for free, and all you have to do is write some words. You get free video games, and all you got to do is just write some words about it. That's a perfect job. So I was a 12-year-old, and I pretended to be an adult on the internet, and that's how I started.
I respect the honesty so much. How long were you able to keep that up?
until I hit adulthood, which I don't know what that says about our medium, but that was possible. And what that did was it meant that I was basically in a hyperbaric time chamber for the typical job or career length in this industry is about 5 years. 3 to 5 to 7 is what different surveys will tell you. And the reason is that's how long it is before someone gets so burnt out physically or mentally they no longer can make games anymore. Let it set aside whether or not there's job openings. So if I go from 12 to 17, I've already seen at least one wave of my peers, of mentors, of people I looked up to fade off into the distance. And I had a deep awareness early on that the conditions in which games were getting made, I didn't know the exact reasons, but I knew that what we were doing was creating a machine that chewed people up and spit them back out, and meant that we could not build things long term. You get something like a Larian, able to build a Baldur's Gate 3 because you have a team and a philosophy and a continuity that exists for 20 years. Same thing for IO Interactive with Hitman, World of Assassination Trilogy. Anyone trying to build anything equivalent to that now is at such a deficit, even with that game to copy directly, because they haven't been building together and building games like this for 20 years. And yeah, seeing even on the journalism side, how it meant that there's conversations we weren't able to advance because as a journalist, you're seeing journalists, leave the medium every couple of years. Every person coming in is like, let's talk about ludonarrative dissonance, which is fair because they haven't talked about ludonarrative dissonance yet. But the conversation hasn't changed because you haven't had people be able to stay in a position long enough to advance that conversation. So seeing and considering all of that, I was actually going to leave. I was 17. I was like, I'm going to put my childish past behind me, move into a fair and adult profession. This is before I learned more about late stage capitalism. So I decided I'd make one game and put that world behind me. And that game was All Hail the Spider God. And I was like, damn it, you got me.
Because the bug.
Making that game was such a satisfying experience. And people enjoyed it, yes. But I realized the process of making a game and the holistic creative decisions associated with it, I still had something to say here. And there was still a part of me that needed to be here. So I did journalism and game development for a while, then just game development. I was a game writer, then I became a narrative designer. And then I realized I didn't give, excuse my language, how good the story was, because what mattered was the game coming out. I don't need an award for writing. What I need is for people to not be destroyed and for this game to come out and be as good as it can possibly be in its time and its budget for the players. So I started moving to production and management and biz dev, and now I have this very weird hybrid experience that's nearly 100 games long where I get to do design one day. I get to do writing another day. I get to be consulting on the strategy of a publisher or developer the next, and really take this uniquely big picture view of so many different development environments into each place that I go and say, how do we make games better, faster, cheaper, and healthier, not just for developers, but for the sake of the players who, when you're giving your hard-earned cash after the end of a week, I want to make sure that the experience you're getting is something that adds to your life. How do we do that?
First of all, you are that person that, these job ads go for where they say, we want someone who's 18 but has 10 years experience in the field. That's you.
Yeah. And guess what? I would apply for those jobs and not get them. So it's all broken.
It's a lie. It's all a lie. Everything you told is a lie. But I think there is something in that, and I really hope we get to drill into that more about how you make your games to be sustainable, not just for the consumer, but also for the developer. I think that's very important. As you said, I mean, you've got a better grip of the understanding and the statistics than me, but I mean, burnout is something that we all know all too well. And in the games industry, it must be another level of hell, because you're making this entertainment platform, this entertainment game, this product for an audience of all ages. And, sometimes when it comes to entertainment, they don't really care how the sausage is made. They just care about the sausage being on the plate and them being able to eat it. So I'm glad now that the conversation has moved on with the consumers, with the people who are covering games, and it has become a bit more mature. And we are now looking at studios with, you know, a magnifying glass and go, "Oh, those business practices are a bit weird," or "Oh, that Cosby story was a bit mad." You know, all these studios that we're looking at with a intense eye. I think it's important that we do have some good ones out there who are making games that are sustainable and are making an environment that is healthy, because, you know, crunch is something that we all know about, and it's not gaming specific.
Yeah,
it's something that
there's a
we
lot of
see
talks
all the
about
time.
how that's impacting the animation industry, and people are like, "Why does the VFX look worse?" And it's like, yeah, because they're giving
That's a reason.
VFX less time. There's more crunch. It's the
Yeah,
same problems.
yeah. And I'm still hopeful of the time where that's just outlawed. But it is something that, especially in the entertainment industry, we know that the makers have to deal with, and we do really appreciate the games and the movies and the anime that come out from these people who are putting their life and soul into these products.
And to those people who are just looking for the sausage to be on the plate, I really try to angle a lot of the work I do, but also the way I talk about that work for them. Because if you just care about the sausage being on the plate, which is entirely fair, it's not your job to understand the socio-economic conditions of an entire industry when you just want to play Destiny.
Yeah.
That's all you're trying to do today. The reason I talk as much as I do about games and the conditions surrounding them is to provide a context for. I do genuinely feel that everyone's feeling, even if they are just looking at the sausage on their plate, there is something wrong. Why is this sausage different? Why is it a malshapen thing? Why is it undercooked? Why does it not taste? Why does it taste like the same sausage I've eaten for the past 10 years? And really drilling down into the most accessible way possible, saying that sausage is bad because the factory is being altered in ways that impact your sausage. You do not get to enjoy that sausage if the machine is broken. Is a big part of why Strange Scaffold tries to build its machine different, so that we can build different games, make games like El Paso Elsewhere, I'm Your Beast, and Clickolding, because otherwise, we get to make similar games to people who are selling copies on Steam, and we have the exact same risks and create the exact same sausages, which all too often, really bending this metaphor, fall between the cracks and then just rot. They just rot right underneath the table, and you can smell it, and it smells bad. I want for the sausage focused people, just bring a not just good sausages, but a real awareness that their sausage is being altered by wider impacts, and that if they focus on the machines, and the executives who drive them, then they can get the sausages that they want.
Wow, that's really eloquently put. So, yes, of course. So you're a writer, you're a dev. Looking into your resume, which has got to be one of the most impressive ones I've seen. You worked on the South Park game. How do you get these opportunities to work on the games as a writer? Does it work as classically as you know, a job interview does, or is this more like you do a really good job and then someone at that studio tells someone at a different studio, hey, this guy I worked with was really good? How does that work in terms of getting these writing gigs before we get into you as a developer and, you know, creating your own games?
That's also something I both give credit to the grace of God for, because it's just one of my favorite Bible verses is, the race is not to the swift, nor battle to the strong, nor yet riches to men of understanding, but time and chance happeneth to them all. The most talented people you've ever worked with or will work with may be out of a job, and it may just be time and chance. So on my end, I thank God for that. I've benefited from a lot of people pouring into me and a lot of luck, but a lot of it is also going back to what you were saying about those job descriptions asking for people with 10 years of experience at 18. I applied for jobs that I didn't get. And so I was kind of forced to continue to be a weirdly shaped person who continued to ship things visibly. And that meant that for Stranger Things VR and South Park and Magic the Gathering, because I just became known as and was seen as the guy who's shipping all the time, who knows how to ship games and ships games well, people knocked on my door. The more you do, the more you get chances to do things. And that's why when I do calls with people asking about their careers or should they start a studio or just like their general place in life, I really try to focus on longevity, because the longer you exist, the more the chance you get that breakthrough moment, that job you never thought you would have, that ability to impact people that is once in a lifetime, happens multiple times in a lifetime if you just last long enough to get there. So someone tells me, I want to make a perfect JRPG tribute to the golden age of the era. It's going to take 8 years, but it's going to be perfection. I hit them with a big stick and I say, no, do not do that. You aren't shipping anything for 8 years. You don't get additional opportunities. It's very unlikely your thing will be perfect. Last for longer. Don't bet it all on one thing. Build up to being able to tell the stories that your audience needs, rather than beginning a journey you might not even be able to finish in the first place.
Wow. That's a very interesting take. I mean, I have heard people, share dreams like that. And, a lot of the time it's gaming, but sometimes it's in other mediums. But you do hear that I want to make the perfect thing, the perfect game. It's going to have this, it's going to have this, it's going to have all my influences. But yeah, I think what you've said is a lot more practical in terms of just like dream more realistic. Like, don't put everything into one basket hoping that you're going to please everyone, because you won't. It's a very weird balancing act. Okay, that's pretty cool.
I mean, and that's the thing is, for a long time, people have been told that dreaming, quote unquote, realistically is a sign of a lack of ambition. Dreaming realistically will not bring your players the games that they want. Not only has Strange Scaffold been doing that for the past 5 years, but that's the way that games used to work. If you look at what From Software, now Elden Ring and their Armored Core, right?
Yeah.
They used to ship like 3 games a year. And once they hit the modern era, they still ship a game as a studio at least like every couple years. Or in the case of Shadow of the Erdtree, a major expansion. So that team gets to be seen as the world best and gets to be the world best because they're constantly getting experience, constantly training. You wouldn't expect someone who has never been in an MMA fight to be able to go out there and not get their shit rocked. So why do we expect a game developer with their first debut title to always be presenting the best thing in the world? Because that's never where a team came from. That's not how Ocarina of Time got made. Chrono Trigger, going back to my personal favorites, was a team that had just shipped game after game after game. Akira Toriyama, coming from his experience in a different medium, putting their team, their skills together and saying, they literally called it, I believe, the Dream Team. We're going to do a Dream Team game. Dream Team games don't get to happen if you don't ship. They don't get to happen if you aren't launching games, interacting with players, and learning constantly. And part of the reason I think you end up with a Concord situation in the modern day is there's a game that percolated for 7-8 years. Yeah. They didn't have the opportunity to, as opposed to previous ages of games, build to creating the experience that they found their audience needed most. They just had to bet it all. And I really hope that team comes through the other side, because a lot of it is, I saw how Firewalk Studios would hire people. They've been cherry picking some of the most experienced and like skilled devs in the industry for years now. The Probably Monsters consortium that they used to be under before they got bought by Sony built a dream team of developers. They were just stuck in a room making a game, for the most part, in secret for nearly a decade. And sometimes it works, and a lot of times it doesn't. And gosh, I would rather see what that team could have put together in like 2 years what can you, if you get a dream team of multiplayer shooter devs, how can they work in 2 years from what they know players need and want right now? That's how we used to work, and we can get back there.
I hope so. That's an amazing hypothetical. Like, it might not be perfect, but you can tell it would be a very passionate project, and it would tick a lot of boxes for gamers.
And that's where a lot of games are coming from now that are ticking boxes. We're seeing. I'm just gonna go to the next, the top selling list on Steam. Just get real gauche and weird with it. Yeah, you have stuff hanging in there like Black Myth Wukong, which is an exceptional title in multiple regards, especially for being this game that had just been boiling for so long, right?
Yeah.
But next to that, you've got things like Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, which Saber Interactive has been making games like this, including literally taking the tech from World War Z to make this type of game. People wouldn't get Space Marine 2 if not for the lineage of things before it. Age of Mythology Retold, that team has been remastering those titles for a while. You have things still, Baldur's Gate 3, even now, full price, hanging in there. And yeah, I when I sit down at the end of a day, I will often find myself booting up an emulator and playing something from the PS2 era, because at minimum, like, I hop between 3 different entries. Those games were made year after year, or like with a year and a half in between them. You know, you have Vice City, which came out a year after Grand Theft Auto 3, and then a year after that, or it's a year or two after that, you have San Andreas, and you get to this experience of playing Vice City and playing those other games in quick succession, much like binging someone's filmography or going through a TV show. You get to see how they grew in between those projects and how those projects say different things.
That's very cool. You took me back to a time there as well with the PS2 reference.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a library. Yeah, we've mentioned a few of your previous projects by name. Tell me about Clickolding, because I noticed something very interesting when I even saw the typography of the game. So
Yep.
obviously, very clever wordplay on your part there. How is my only question? How? Why? Tell me about Clickolding.
So, Clickolding, there's an oral history about it on Wired, but long story short, what makes a project appealing for me is not just its creative pitch, but how that intersects with the production and the business of it. How do you make those things make sense together to become greater than the sum of its parts? So we were sitting around a table at GDC at like 3 a.m. and I basically percolate in real time this design for a game that, if you make it small enough and you make it fast enough, you get to make something that feels like nothing else. That allows you to feel discomfort in ways that games typically never can or do touch on. At one point, a few years ago, I was locked in an attic with a neo-Nazi and I had to talk my way out. So pulling a little bit from that experience, but also from just wider feelings of like, what does it mean to be trapped in a room with someone who you don't fully know what they want or need from you, but you gotta do it, and you are doing it in one way or another. This touches even a little bit on like Twitch and YouTube culture, where someone will be wearing a piece of clothing or just moving a certain pose, and people will be like, "That's sexual," and it's like the reinterpretation of your actions in real time can be deeply cognitively dissonant. So what if you, just by clicking in a game about clicking, were having someone perpetrate on that on you in real time, and you're playing into it, but also you're kind of not playing into it. How you relate to it depends on your life experience, or whether you're streaming or whether you're not. Whatever you're doing, sitting in that room with that game right now, it opens fast, it closes abruptly, and with a very, it closes abruptly and with direct impact. And yeah, I mean, if you ask me like what Clickolding is, it's a game about thumbing a tally counter to satisfy the desires of the distressing masked man sitting in the corner of your hotel room, but because it was made efficiently by an experienced team, all working together to make something incredibly up, for lack of a better term, then it gets to be more than the sum of its parts. It gets to be more than that in a way that has captured, tens of thousands of people. Well, not actually millions of people's imaginations.
Wow. And again, congrats on that.
Thank you.
It's almost like I mean, obviously being a writer and a journalist has helped you with this, but like the way you're delivering the message that you want in your games, or being able to transform real life experiences into these games that can live on for a very long time, if not forever, is a very underrated skill, and the one that you've displayed multiple times in the games that you've shipped. So yeah, again, I'm just here to shower praise. Tell me about El Paso Elsewhere, because that's another big title from you. I think, is that your most recent before I Am Your Beast?
No, before that we had I Am Your Beast, Clickolding, and then Life Eater, which was a horror fantasy kidnapping sim about you're a druid living in modern day suburbia, and you have to kidnap your neighbors every year to delay the end of the world on behalf of a god that you aren't sure exists. So, yeah.
I can see why that works so well. I'm pretty sure I've seen horror movies with plots that are similar, so I can see that working. Oh,
let me tell you, that pitch scared a lot of people.
I can imagine.
But yeah,
did you have to did you have to code that game when it came to pitching it? Did you have to disguise the aim of the game, or would you just be honest and candid and direct about it?
The closest we got to coding it, because thanks to support from Frosty Pop, we were able to just tell the story that we wanted to tell, was fantasy. Originally, it was just supposed to be a kidnapping sim, because the idea of visualizing this really interesting UI management-based horror game, really, like the disturbing nature of modern day life, something that goes in my head a lot was when I was a kid growing up, it was like, never share your real name on the internet, never share your age or your location. And now you got the same people who told us that saying, here, I'm going to be on a cruise for the next 3 weeks with my husband. And the first thing that goes through my head is anyone could rob you. Anyone could could rob you. Anyone could do anything, because you're updating your location, your life in real time. And there's such a visibility, shared and unshared, that the only thing that protects us from the negative consequences of that is a shared social contract. So a game that, again, could efficiently tell this story where you are just progressively in the greatest sin you commit in the game is not sacrificing every people to delay the end of the world on the behalf of God that you aren't sure exists. The greatest sin is you are systematically intruding into their life. You are searching databases. You're siphoning their gas. You are scrolling through their social media. And these are all just actions you're clicking from an interface. But as soon as you hear it or see it visualized in that way, you're like, oh, this is more disturbing than if I was just straight up killing people in the game. Because we do that all the time. Because I am looking at someone's life. And I am not just progressively making it worse, but I am thinking through the process of how I tear away any idea of security or privacy that they have to find a vulnerable moment in their lives to abduct them. That's more effective horror to me, again, than often a lot of slasher horror. It's systemic, and it is something that makes you look at your own life and go I'm not going to post that picture from the bar until a couple hours from now, actually, when I am home. So, yeah, all of our games are trying to punch above their weight and say and do something. So El Paso Elsewhere, which is this throwback third-person shooter, kind of Dead to Rights, Max Payne era, about a black monster hunter who has to go to this motel in El Paso, Texas, to kill the monster he loved before she ends the world, isn't just having you dive around in slow motion, shoot werewolves in a dimension shifting hotel. It's also telling the story about like abuse. When you have a romantic relationship with the Lord of the Vampires, it's gonna leave you messed up, and your character grapples with that across the course of a 10-hour adventure. And the fact that we can make those games that often exist on those two levels, I Am Your Beast being this really punchy comic book shooter that also is about someone recovering from the military-industrial complex, and a lot of faceless soldiers and that thing having to pay for the arrogance of one dude hundreds of miles away who's never going to set foot and be the danger line himself. I love that we get to make games like that.
Yeah, I think I was definitely right with that message thing I said earlier. Like all of your games are putting across a message, sometimes social, sometimes political. But yeah, it feels like you're always trying to deliver more than just, hey, this fun, mindless game that I'm playing. There's always a clever message that you're putting inside that game. That's really, that's really commendable. So what makes I Am Your Beast so special? Because I saw the trailer on Twitter and I was blown away. And that's partly because of the music choice. It's partly because of the trailer. There's a lot of action. Tell me about the secret sauce of I Am Your Beast.
I would say that the secret sauce of the game is that it hits, at least for me, and this is me being biased as well as not seeing as several things in the game as special, because I've just been around it for too long. The game, we developed it for cumulatively about 3 years, but the game was canceled twice, and the latest iteration of it was built from the ground up in 9 months. That project, for me, the most special thing about it, the secret sauce that you can see in the trailers and that makes it so addictive to play, is that it nails an improvisational combat loop that most games never touch. You are in that moment. You kick a dude, his gun flies into the air, you catch his gun, you throw it at another dude who his gun flies there, you catch him, you stomp the dude's face who's on the ground, you get 3 headshots, you stomp the other dude, you pick up a bear trap, you throw it at someone's head like a baseball, it snaps around their face, and then you leap into a hatch before you can get confronted by the military forces converging on your location. That type of really energetic and kinetic improvisational loop is really hard to build. We had incredibly talented and skilled people like Dan Pierce spearhead getting that balance. And now that it's there, it just lets you feel in the moment unlike most shooters ever do. This idea that as time has gone on, we think a lot about like loadouts or like long-term planning, having you in the moment, fist in your face and most frequently someone else's face, think through, catch this, grab that, throw this gun at a wasp's nest so it drops on those 3 guys, and then pick up a claymore, throw it down behind me, so dude will step into that, which will complete the mission objective so I can get a time that's like 2 seconds shorter. That is endlessly compelling. I don't play my own games. I have to stop myself from playing I Am Your Beast, and it seems to have really clicked with people.
Wow. Yeah, I would say. And I see that. There's a lot of hyperactive energy with the trailer, and I think before anyone even has a time to, assess what they're seeing, they're like, "Oh, next thing! Oh, next thing!" and it's super fun.
And you can feel just looking at the footage of like, "Oh, I'm going to do these things," and that idea of like, and you being like, "I want to grab that. I want to do that." It's really fun to bring a game like that to life, because I've done longer term stuff, games that have longer interest loops and whatever else, games that let you reload. We have reload animations in the game. We didn't use them because it was more fun to always be switching out your weapon and to frankly take a gun from someone's hands rather than look down at the ground, click to pick up their bullets and put it in inventory and then find the right moment for a reload. What if you could just throw a gun at a guy? And it'd be like, yoink, now it's your gun. That feels better. And so we didn't use them.
That's really clever. Because the only thing I can even compare that to is the God of War franchise, where Kratos notoriously he uses a lot of weapons that he takes from foes he's defeated. So it gave me a little bit of that when you were explaining it. But obviously, because it's so sped up, like I don't even have time to like deep it. It's just it's almost like, as you said, with the camera work as well. You feel so in that person's point of view, and it's just like, I'm surviving. I don't have time to think. I'm just trying to survive. All right, there's an enemy. Off goes his head. 3 guys. All right, dead. Like, you don't even have time to like deep what you've done, which is very interesting. I like the creative choice of. I mean, you can reload, but why? Why? You just kill the next guy, take his gun, use his bullets. All right, it's gone. Boom. Use it as a boomerang or a javelin. Boom. Next one. That's very cool. I like that. Improvisational combat. It's a very interesting term. I wonder if it's patented.
There's probably a corporation that will do it at some point. Now we're doing it, but
I'll get this out.
No, but I love improvisational combat. It's my favorite part of Sifu, for example. If you or any of your viewers have played that, that's also again a little bit more planning focused, but it being stuck into that moment and thinking through your environment, being like, I'm gonna dodge over here, kick a chair over, and just having that sequence of things you can do. It's really special. And when you combine that with this bumping soundtrack and this really beautiful, like comic book inspired art style that isn't just cell shaded, we don't just draw big black lines around everything, but it has these really hard shadows and lighting conditions that are reminiscent of things you'd see in like Mike Mignola Hellboy comics. Yeah, it feels and looks really good every single second. And I haven't worked on a lot of games like that in my studio or elsewhere.
That's sick. I've got one more question. You mentioned how you like to make games sustainable, and it's very clear that you're putting the devs first in a way when it comes to the way you build your games and you make the games live longer. What can you share about why your studio has been so successful, and what about the way you make your games is so sustainable? What is the how, as you said?
I mean, I think you put it perfectly. When I take care of the devs take care of the players. At every moment, I'm thinking, how do I make an experience that fits into my player's life? Because people are spending their limited time, their limited money, and they sit down with a game that all too often, especially like, I don't know if you run into this on Game Pass, but like big AAA game or AA game lands on Game Pass and looks cool. But I'm already doing the mental calculations of like, okay, I'm going to have 5 times I can sit down this week and be with this game. If I put 5 hours into this or 10 hours in that time, am I going to get out of the tutorial? Am I still going to be stuck learning skill trees?
Huh.
And so looking at, and also like, I'll be real, I love Fortnite. I get my battle pass to 100 every season now that they have zero build. Do I play this game instead of Fortnite? So I think a big reason for the success of the studio, again, outside of time and chance and the grace of God, is taking care of developers, but all of those developers, including myself, also thinking about how are we providing a distinct experience in someone's life. Here's a game that you're going to play to chill out and relax in front of a TV. Here's a game that you're going to play when you want to feel hyped up or get rid of some aggression. Here's a game that you're going to play when you want to feel bad. You just have a night where you want to get messed up by something mentally for like an hour and a half or a half hour. And the fact that Strange Scaffold has released so many games and they've released so many distinct experiences like that, so people can like chain chomp their way through all of these different statements, all of these different gameplay experiences. Yeah, it means that people follow us from release to release in a way that you often can't do in indie because you're waiting for the next release from these people who you loved. If you can still remember that game you played 3 years ago. Or, and it also means that we just have different spaces in people's lives. So when you look at we've got a game we're announcing in the next few months, probably, that I have wanted to make from the start of my career. And it's coming out next year. And this game, when it appears, because this is saying something for me, one of the weirdest pitches I have ever made in my life. When this game appears, not only am I so stoked for people to see it and to finally be able to talk about this, because it's a game like I Am Your Beast that got resurrected after having to be canceled because it couldn't find support.
Yeah.
I'm really glad because people are going to look at it instantly and it will fit a different space in their lives. They're going to be playing it differently for different reasons. And having a studio where no matter what we've just released, there's always the chance we're going to make your next favorite game and it's going to come like 6 months from now. I think it ends up being really special. And it means that people come to us again and again. It's not something I take for granted. And so I put that time and that elbow grease in alongside my team to make sure when we come in with this new experience, we come in swinging.
Love that. I can't wait to see what this game is. For you to say it's the weirdest pitch you've ever made.
It's close. I think Clickolding is a little bit above it, but it's close.
Either way, I'm very excited and I look forward to seeing the trailer, the announcement. And I wanted to say thank you so much for being so graceful with your time.
Thank you so
and
much
congrats.
for having me.
Of course, yes. Congrats on getting married recently. I hope being a married man is being fruitful for you. Providing
it's amazing.
That's what we love to hear. And once again, congrats on shipping all of those games, being a journalist, perhaps in a time when you shouldn't have been one, acquiring 10 years of experience in 5, and all of your success, continued success for the studio, shipping 15 games in 5 years. I'm hoping that roller coaster record continues. But as we wrap up, please let the people know how they can follow you, support you, buy your game, etc., if they are not already aware of you.
If you're not already aware, you can follow at Strange Scaffold everywhere. You can follow at Writ Nelson everywhere, WRIT Nelson. See what we're cooking up and consider giving I Am Your Beast a shot. It's on Steam now. And once you start playing, it'll be real hard to stop for all the right reasons. You can also pick it up with the Strange Scaffold collection, get all of our games in one nice, heavily discounted bundle, anticipating the next time that we surprise you.
Awesome. Oh, there you go. You heard the man. We'll make sure the links are in the description, no matter whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify. You'll be able to connect and buy those games. And if you like the Streamcast, if you like what we're doing here, we'll put links in the description as well, so you can always support us, be the first to know when we're dropping a new episode on your head top. But until the next one, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. Keep on gaming. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.